Hey guys, imagine this. I'm soaking in a hot bath, totally alone, until my daughter's boyfriend barges in and catches me off guard. Then he's crashing at my place, and I hear things I shouldn't through the walls. Late night, we're face to face in the kitchen, tensions thick. Then he vanishes, and just when I think it's over, there's someone at my back door. But it's not him. What the heck's going on? Stick around to find out. This one's wild. I sank into the tub, hot water swirling around me, steam rising like a cozy hug. After a week of grading papers and chasing deadlines, this was my reward. The house sat quiet in our little Seattle suburb. Just me and the hum of the water heater. Emily, my daughter, was off with friends until tomorrow, so I had the place to myself. I let my eyes drift shut, the heat melting into my shoulders, my fingers lazily brushing the water's surface. It felt good. Better than good. Like I could finally breathe. I teach history at the local high school, and trust me, wrangling teenagers all day leaves you craving moments like this. Then the door flew open. A sharp gasp cut through the steam. Not mine. My eyes snapped wide. There he was. Jake. Emily's boyfriend, towering in the doorway, a towel slung over his shoulder. His dark hair was damp, like he'd just showered somewhere else. He froze, his grip tightening on the towel, his chest heaving like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Me? I was a deer in headlights, heat rushing to my face faster than the steam could keep up. My arms darted to cover myself, but the bubbles weren't doing me any favors. Too late. He'd seen me, all of me, standing there, totally caught off guard in my own space. Oh, crap, sorry! His voice cracked, rough and shaky, his throat bobbing as he stumbled over the words. I didn't know anyone was here. He jerked back, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I sat there, heart pounding in my ears, water sloshing around me. The steam felt heavier now, clinging to my skin. I should have been mortified. Screamed, maybe. Yelled at him to get out. But all I could think about was that split second when his shock turned into something else. Something I couldn't quite name. I took a slow breath, trying to shake it off. Okay, relax, I told myself. He's just a kid. Well, not a kid, 22, but still. Emily's boyfriend. He probably didn't mean to barge in. He'd been over a few times, fixing his old truck in our driveway or grabbing dinner with us. Always polite, always flashing that easy grin. I figured he'd stop by to grab something Emily left behind. Wrong place, wrong time. Simple mistake. But my pulse wouldn't slow down. My skin prickled, and not just from the heat. I climbed out of the tub, water dripping onto the mat, and grabbed a towel. Wrapping it tight, I caught my reflection in the foggy mirror. Flushed cheeks, wide eyes. I looked rattled. Because I was. I mean, who wouldn't be? Your daughter's boyfriend walks in on you naked. It's the kind of thing you laugh about later, right? Except I wasn't laughing. I kept replaying that moment. The way he stood there, the way his eyes flickered before he bolted. I dried off quick and slipped into a light robe, the kind that barely hits your knees. Not my most modest pick, but it was late, and I wasn't planning on company. The house felt different now, like the air had shifted. I padded to the living room, peering out the window. His beat-up truck sat in the drive, so he was still here. Great. I could have marched out there, told him to leave, but what would I even say? Hey, Jake, nice seeing you. Now get lost? No, too awkward. Besides, he'd probably die of embarrassment first. I flopped onto the couch, tugging the robe tighter. Part of me wanted to call Emily, ask why he was even here, but that'd mean explaining this whole mess. And what would I tell her? Your boyfriend just saw me in the buff, no biggie? Yeah, no. I'd sound like a nutcase. Instead, I grabbed my phone, scrolling through nothing, trying to distract myself. Didn't work. My mind kept circling back to that look on his face. Not just surprise, but something heavier. Curiosity, maybe? Okay, stop, I told myself. You're 43, not some teenager with a crush. This is ridiculous. He's dating your daughter. He's practically family. Well, not family, but you get it. Point is, I needed to let it go. Accidents happen. People walk into the wrong room. It's not a crime. But sitting there, I couldn't shake this nagging feeling, like I'd stumbled into something I wasn't ready for. I got up, pacing a little, bare feet tapping the hardwood. Maybe I should have locked the bathroom door. But who locks a door in their own house when they're alone? No one. That's who. This was on him, not me. Still, I wondered what he was thinking out there. Was he laughing it off? Texting his buddies about the crazy mom he just walked in on? Or was he as rattled as I was? I stopped by the kitchen counter, leaning against it. Deep breaths. Didn't have to be a thing. I'd see him again, probably tomorrow with Emily, and we'd both pretend it never happened. That's the adult move, right? Act normal, move on. But even as I told myself that, my stomach flipped. Because deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to forget it. Not completely. And that scared me more than the door swinging open ever did. What kind of person doesn't just brush this off? I mean, I'm supposed to be the grown-up here, the one with her head on straight. I teach kids about consequences, wars, decisions, big moments that change everything. Yet here I was, stuck on a tiny one, wondering why it felt so big. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was the quiet house playing tricks on me. Or maybe, just maybe, it was something I didn't want to admit. I shook my head, forcing a laugh. Get it together, I muttered out loud, my voice bouncing off the walls. This was a story for the ages, sure, but not one I'd tell. Not to Emily, not to my friends, not to anyone. It'd stay right here, locked in my head, a weird little secret between me and the steam. And Jake, I guess. Whether I liked it or not. I tugged the robe tighter around me, the soft fabric brushing my knees as I stepped into the kitchen. My heart was still racing from the bathroom fiasco, but I figured I could play it cool. Then I saw them. Emily, all smiles, flipping through her phone, and Jake, perched at the counter with a bottle of water. He glanced up the second I walked in, his eyes locking on mine for a beat too long before dropping to the counter. My stomach did a flip. "Mom!" Emily chirped, oblivious. "Jake's staying over. His truck's acting up again. That cool?" I froze, my fingers gripping the edge of the robe. His truck? Of course. That's why he'd been here in the first place. Sure, honey," I managed, forcing a smile. "No problem." Jake nodded, lifting his bottle like a half-hearted toast. But then his gaze flicked over me again. Quick, subtle, enough to make my skin tingle. I turned to the sink, pretending to fuss with a dish, anything to avoid those eyes. Emily kept chatting about her day, something about a group project, but I barely heard her. All I could feel was him, sitting there, quiet but heavy in the room. I'm a mom, right? A teacher? I deal with awkward all the time. Kids tripping over their words, spilling secrets they don't mean to. This shouldn't have rattled me. But it did. Maybe because it wasn't just awkward. It was loaded. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filling it with water I didn't even want, just to keep my hands busy. "You okay, Mom?" Emily asked, her voice pulling me back. "You look kinda zoned out." "Yeah, just tired," I lied, taking a sip. Jake shifted in his seat, the plastic bottle crinkling under his grip. I risked a glance. He was staring at his phone now, thumb scrolling, but his jaw was tight, like he was holding something in. Did he feel it too, this weird vibe hanging between us? Or was I imagining it, projecting my own mess onto him? I mean, he's 22, dating my daughter. He's not supposed to be here, not like this. "Dinner's in 10, Emily said, hopping up. "I'm throwing some pizzas in the oven. Jake, you're on cheese duty." She tossed him a grin, and he smirked back, easy as ever. "Yes, ma'am," he said, sliding off the stool. His voice was smooth, casual, but when he passed me to grab the shredded mozzarella from the fridge, his arm brushed mine. Barely a touch, but it hit like a spark. I stepped back, clutching my glass tighter. He didn't look at me, just kept moving. But I swear I saw his smirk twitch wider. I should have said something. Cracked a joke, broken the tension. That's what I'd tell my students. Laugh it off, keep it light. But my throat felt dry. Words stuck somewhere between my brain and my mouth. Emily hummed to herself, sliding the pizzas into the oven, while Jake leaned against the counter, tearing open the cheese bag. "You're quiet tonight," he said suddenly, not looking up. It took me a second to realize he meant me. "Long day," I mumbled, setting my glass down. "Grading papers wears you out." He nodded, like that made sense, but his eyes flicked up again, just for a moment, and my pulse jumped. What was he thinking? Was he replaying the bathroom scene too? Or was he just being polite, filling the silence? I wanted to ask, but that'd be insane. "Hey, Jake, still embarrassed about walking in on me?" "Yeah, no. I'd rather die." The oven beeped, and Emily clapped her hands. "Food's up. Mom, grab some plates?" I nodded, grateful for the distraction. I pulled plates from the shelf, handing them over, careful not to get too close to Jake. He took his without a word, but his fingers brushed mine, and I yanked my hand back like I'd been burned. He didn't react, just piled pizza onto his plate, chatting with Emily about some car part he needed to fix his truck. Normal. Totally normal. So why did I feel like I was walking a tightrope? We sat at the table, Emily next to Jake, me across from them. She dominated the conversation, rambling about her professor's bad jokes, while I picked at my slice. Jake chimed in now and then, his voice low and steady. But every time he looked my way, I felt it. Like a spotlight I couldn't dodge. I kept my eyes on my food, nodding at Emily's story, trying to act like everything was fine. It wasn't. "So, Jake," I said, surprising myself, "how's the truck coming along?" My voice sounded too bright, too forced, but I needed to say something, anything to feel in control. He leaned back, wiping his hands on a napkin. "Getting there. Just needs a new alternator. I'll be out of your hair soon." His tone was light, but his eyes held mine a second longer than they should have. "No rush," I said, then cringed inside. Why'd I say that? Emily laughed. "Yeah, you're basically family now. Right, Mom?" I nodded, faking a chuckle, but the word family twisted in my gut. He wasn't family. He was the guy who'd seen me at my most vulnerable, and now he was sitting here eating pizza like it was nothing. Maybe it was nothing. To him. Maybe I was the only one overthinking it. Dinner wrapped up fast. Emily cleared the table, Jake helped, and I stayed out of the way, sipping my water, watching them move like a team. They were cute together. Young, carefree, the way I used to be with my ex before life got complicated. I should have been happy for her. I was, but that didn't stop the knot in my chest from tightening. "Night, Mom," Emily called, heading upstairs with Jake trailing behind. "See you tomorrow," he added, his voice neutral but his glance lingering. I waved, forcing another smile. "Sleep tight." The door clicked shut behind them, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I stood there in the empty kitchen, the hum of the fridge filling the silence. This was going to be a long night. I could feel it. Not just because he was here, but because I wasn't sure what I felt about it. Guilt? Embarrassment? Something else? I teach my kids that history's all about perspective. How you see the moment changes everything. Right now, I had no clue what my perspective was, and that was the scariest part of all. I shut the kitchen light off and climbed the stairs, the pizza sitting heavy in my stomach. Emily and Jake had disappeared into her room after dinner, their laughter fading behind the closed door. I lingered in the hall for a second, hearing the muffled sound of her TV through the walls. Good. They were settled. I could finally unwind. I slipped into my bedroom, kicked off my slippers, and crawled under the covers. The house was quiet now, just the faint creak of the old pipes settling in. I stared at the ceiling, willing my brain to shut off. It had been a weird day. Jake walking in on me that tense dinner. I needed sleep to hit the reset button. Then I heard it. A soft rustle, like sheets moving. I held my breath, listening harder. A whisper, too low to catch the words. Then a giggle. Emily. My shoulders relaxed a little. Just them talking. No big deal. I rolled onto my side, pulling the blanket up, ready to drift off. But then came a sound that stopped me cold. A quiet moan of laughter. My eyes popped open. No way. I had to be imagining it. Old houses make noises, right? I waited, heart thumping. There it was again, faint but real, followed by a hushed laugh. I yanked the blanket tighter, my face heating up. Oh, come on. This wasn't happening. Not in my house, not 10 feet from my room. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out, but the sounds kept coming. Soft gasps, a rhythm I couldn't unhear as they cracked up over some late-night joke. My fingers dug into the pillow. I should have gotten up, banged on the wall, turned on some loud music, anything to drown it out. But I just lay there, stiff as a board, cheeks burning. It wasn't loud, not like they were trying to wake the neighborhood, but it was enough. Too much. I flipped onto my back, staring at the ceiling again. Why was this getting to me? I'm 43, not some prude. I've been around the block, married, divorced, raised a kid. I know what goes on between two people. Emily's 19, Jake's 22. They're young, in love, or whatever you call it at that age. It's normal. But knowing that didn't stop my stomach from twisting. Maybe it was the surprise of it, catching me off guard after everything else today. Or maybe it was because I couldn't stop picturing Jake, the way he'd looked at me earlier, confident, steady. I shook my head hard. Nope, not going there. This was about them, not me. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, thinking I'd scroll Instagram or something. Anything to distract myself. But the sounds slipped through again. A quick laugh, a murmur. I dropped the phone and pressed my hands over my ears. Didn't help. My mind was racing now, filling in blanks I didn't want filled. Jake knew what he was doing. That much was clear. And Emily sounded happy, giddy even. Good for them, I guess. But good for me? Not so much. I sat up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. Maybe I should have set some ground rules when Emily asked if he could stay. No funny business under my roof, or something mommish like that. Too late now. I rubbed my face, trying to laugh it off. This was ridiculous. I teach teenagers every day. Hormones are basically their job description. I tell them all the time, actions have consequences, but you've got to own your choices. So why was I the one freaking out over their choices? I stood up, pacing the room, bare feet padding on the rug. The sounds were fading now, just whispers again. Maybe they were done. Thank God. I stopped by the window, peeking through the blinds. His truck still sat in the driveway, a dark shape under the streetlight. He wasn't going anywhere tonight. Neither was I, stuck here with my own dumb thoughts. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Okay, perspective check. They're a couple. They're happy. I'm the adult here, not some eavesdropper losing my mind over it. Still, I couldn't shake it. Not the sounds, not the way they made me feel. Caught off guard, rattled, maybe even a little jealous. Not of Emily, no way. That'd be messed up. But jealous of what? Their energy, their freedom? I used to have that, back before life got all serious. Bills, lesson plans, parent-teacher nights. Now here I was, wide awake, listening to my daughter's boyfriend prove he's got game. I climbed back into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin. The house went quiet again, finally. No more giggles, no more anything. Just me and the dark. I let out a long breath, trying to settle my nerves. This wasn't about me. It was their moment, their thing. I didn't need to make it mine. But as I closed my eyes, one thought kept poking at me. Jake wasn't just some clumsy kid. He had a way about him. Smooth, sure of himself. And I'd noticed it more than I wanted to admit. Was that wrong? I mean, I'm not blind. He's a good-looking guy, and he's got that quiet confidence most 22-year-olds don't. But noticing's one thing. Dwelling on it's another. I teach my students about boundaries all the time, how history's full of people crossing lines they shouldn't. I wasn't about to be one of them. Still, lying there, I couldn't help wondering what he'd say if he knew I'd heard them. Would he laugh it off? Apologize? Or would that smirk of his just get bigger? I rolled over, burying my face in the pillow. Enough. Sleep would fix this. Wipe the slate clean. Tomorrow I'd see them at breakfast, all smiles and normal like none of this ever happened. That's the plan. Stick to it. But as my eyes finally drifted shut, I knew one thing for sure. This night was going to stick with me, whether I liked it or not. And I wasn't sure how I felt about that yet. I couldn't sleep. The silence after those sounds from Emily's room pressed down on me like a weight. My head was a mess. Jake's smirk, that awkward dinner, the way I'd frozen in the tub. I needed air, something to clear the fog. I threw the covers off and crept downstairs, barefoot on the cold hardwood. The kitchen was dark, just the glow of the microwave clock cutting through the shadows. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filled it with water, and took a slow sip. The chill grounded me, steadying my shaky nerves. Then I felt it. Someone behind me. I spun around, water sloshing in my hand. Jake stood in the doorway, wearing nothing but a pair of gym shorts, hair messy like he'd just rolled out of bed. His arms were crossed, casual, but his eyes locked on mine, sharp and awake. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, voice low, almost teasing. I swallowed hard, setting the glass down before I dropped it. "Yeah, something like that," I said, keeping my tone light. He stepped closer, the floor creaking under him. "We wake you up?" His smirk crept up like he knew the answer. My face burned and I shook my head too fast. "No, just restless." Liar. He'd heard me lie too. I could tell by the way his eyes narrowed, playful but piercing. "Right," he said, leaning against the counter, close enough that I caught the faint scent of his cologne. My heart kicked up, loud in the quiet. "You okay?" he asked, softer now, like he actually cared. I nodded, clutching the edge of my robe. "Fine. You?" He shrugged, his shoulder brushing mine as he shifted. "Better now." The words hung there, simple but heavy. I should have stepped back, made some excuse, gone upstairs. But my feet wouldn't move. His gaze slid over me, not pushy, just steady, and my skin prickled. "Long night," I muttered, breaking the silence. "Yeah," he said, voice dropping. "Guess we're both stuck here." He reached past me for a glass, his arm grazing mine again, and I flinched. He noticed, pausing with the glass in hand. "Nervous?" he asked, half smiling. "No," I shot back, too quick. He chuckled, filling his glass from the tap. "Sure you're not." I turned away, staring at the sink, trying to get a grip. This was dumb. He was Emily's boyfriend, crashing here because of his truck. I was the mom, the responsible one. But the air felt thick, like it was daring me to say something stupid. "You're good at this," I blurted, then cringed. What was that supposed to mean? He raised an eyebrow, sipping his water. "At what?" "Making people notice you," I said, fumbling. His smirk widened, but he didn't push it. "Comes with the job. Fixing cars, you learn to read people." He set the glass down, leaning closer. "What about you? You notice a lot, don't you?" My breath caught. He wasn't wrong. I'd noticed him. Too much, all night. "I'm a teacher," I said, deflecting. "It's my job to pay attention." He nodded, like that settled it, but his eyes didn't let go. "So what did you think?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "About what?" I shot back, heart pounding. "Tonight. Us." He tilted his head toward Emily's room. My stomach flipped. He meant the sounds. He knew I'd heard. "I didn't," I started, but he cut me off with a quiet laugh. "You did. It's cool. Just curious." I should have shut it down, told him to drop it. Instead, I said, "You're loud." His grin flashed, quick and bright. "Noted. We'll keep it down next time." Next time. The words hit me funny, stirring something I didn't want to name. "You should get back," I said, nodding toward the stairs. He didn't move. "You sure?" His hand brushed mine. Light, accidental, but it lit me up like a spark of surprise in the dark. I pulled back, crossing my arms. "Yeah, Emily's waiting." He watched me a second longer, then nodded. "Night, then." He turned, heading for the stairs, but stopped halfway. "You're not what I expected," he said over his shoulder. I frowned. "What's that mean?" He glanced back, eyes glinting. "Thought you'd be stricter, more momish." I laughed, short and sharp. "Sorry to disappoint." He shook his head. You didn't. Then he was gone. Footsteps fading up the stairs. I stood there, alone again, water glass sweating on the counter. My pulse wouldn't settle. What just happened? A chat? A test? I teach my kids about moments, how they shift everything if you let them. This felt like one, but I wasn't sure what it shifted. I took another sip, replaying his words. You're not what I expected. What did he expect? Some uptight nag? I'm strict when I need to be, classroom rules, curfews, but I'm not a robot. I feel stuff. Notice stuff. Like him. Too much. I shook it off, rinsing my glass. This was nothing. A late night talk, a little banter. No harm done. But as I headed back to bed, the house creaked, and my mind wouldn't quit. He'd seen me. Really seen me. Not just in the tub, but here. Now. And I'd seen him too. Confident, easy, dangerous in a way I couldn't pin down. I climbed under the covers, staring at the ceiling. Sleep still wouldn't come. I kept hearing his voice, that last line. You didn't. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it, squinting at the screen. A text from Emily. Mom, you awake? My heart jumped. Had she heard us? I typed back. Yeah, what's up? The reply came fast. Jake's gone. Truck's still here, but he's not in the house. Did you see him leave? I froze, breath stuck in my throat. I'd just seen him, minutes ago, downstairs. I bolted upright, throwing the covers off, and ran to the window. His truck sat there, dark and still. No Jake. My eyes darted to the stairs, the kitchen, the shadows. He'd been right here. Where'd he go? Then I heard it. A faint tap, like a branch on glass. My head snapped to the back door. Through the blinds, a figure stood outside, staring in. Not Jake, someone else. This is an artistic and fictional creation intended for both entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or events is purely coincidental. Some scenes and dialogues in the video are part of a dramatized performance and incorporate elements of grotesque, satire, and exaggeration. The creator stands against discrimination, violence, and hatred. This channel fully complies with YouTube's policies and does not infringe upon copyright laws.